If there's one tennis star who's had to struggle the most during the times of COVID and after, none other than Novak Djokovic. Sure, everyone goes through rough patches in sports, but since Noel refused to get the vaccine, competing was even more challenging for him. But it looks like we'll be seeing him play in Australia again. Djokovic says signs are positive he will play Australian Open despite visa ban. Let's find out more. Starting with Novak's statement on his Australian visa, there are good signals in Novak Djokovic's opinion to indicate that he will take part in the Australian Open in January. Because of the concerns of his health and moral order, the 21-time Grand Slam winner was kicked out of the country on the eve of this year's event because he had not yet received the COVID-19 vaccination. There was an automatic 3-year prohibition on visa attached to the decision, but there are signs that the incoming Labour Party government is prepared to lift that limit. The Serbian, whose expulsion came with an indefinite travel restriction because of his statues as a talisman of anti-vaccination sentiment, said that these signs are made on an unofficial basis. He continued by saying he expects to find out within the next few weeks whether he will be admitted to the country in time for the Open. Djokovic told the Serbian news site Portal, quote, "There are some favorable indicators for Australia, but unofficially." He added that his attorneys in Australia are handling all of his correspondences and, if all goes well, he'll return to the courts in no time. Following up, not everyone is in favor of it. Former Australian Home Affairs Minister and member of the Australian opposition, Karen Andrews, has said that granting Djokovic a waiver would be a slap in the face to Australians who receive the COVID vaccination. Even though Tennis Australia cannot advocate on Djokovic's behalf, Australian Open Tournament Director Greg Tilley has said that he would welcome him in the next event if he can gain a visa. Djokovic is excited about beginning the 2023 season after a successful 2022 that included 2 ATP circuit victories. Noel stated, quote, "I really want to go there. I'm over what happened this year and I just want to play tennis. That is what I do best." He said that he had always had an additional burst of motivation whenever he goes to Australia since that's where he is historically played his best tennis. Truer than ever before, in fact. He added that he's crossing his fingers for a sympathetic response. Let's talk about how it went down. Although Djokovic has won the Australian Open 9 times, he could not compete in the most recent tournament because he had not been vaccinated. His general opponent, Rafael Nadal, won the tournament. The 35-year-old arrived with a medical exemption but was detained and then expelled after public outrage forced the government to tear up his visa. This is how it went down. Djokovic, at the time the best player in the world, arrived in Melbourne under the impression that he didn't need to get the COVID vaccine because of his status as the best player in the world. Instead, the Australian Border Force revoked his visa and he was sent to a detention center. After a lengthy court battle and widespread media publicity, he was deported and given a 3-year immigration suspension. Then, after missing Wimbledon for the 21st time, he was also denied admittance to the US Open because of visa issues, but we really hope that things are cooled down now. Djokovic told the Serbian news site Sportal he's expecting the result of his appeal for the 3-year visa ban soon. Fingers crossed, everyone. As of now, he said whether it's a question of vaccines, a broken limb, a concussion, or anything else, there's a good reason he doesn't want anybody prying into his medical history. Moving on, Noel talked some more about Australia. Still unvaccinated, Djokovic said that he knew about the decisions he took. He understood there would be some implications like not traveling to America. With Australia, however, the exemption applied to him. Nonetheless, in the end, the situation still did not work out. He said that they've seen what happened, there's no use in going back in time. Djokovic also added, quote, "This time, I'm waiting for permission again." It's a good thing that they have now opened the borders for unvaccinated foreigners traveling to Australia. Quote, "I have that ban. I hope it will be lifted. As I said, it's not in my hands. I hope the people in the Australian government will give a proper answer. That is all." Andrew Giles has taken over for Alex Hawke as immigration minister in Australia after Djokovic's suspension went into effect. Hopefully, he'll exempt Djokovic, allowing him to take part in the Australian Open. Up next, the Serbian talked about his life lessons that came from the ban. Djokovic, 35, said, quote, "It was a very interesting year, peculiar." He described himself as someone who tries to find the silver lining in every cloud since it is fundamental to who he is and how he approaches life. He understands that the way he was treated in Australia and since then has taught him some important lessons, although it was unpleasant and unlike anything he had even encountered before. He also added that lessons about myself, about life, and about the way I should move on in the world, especially in the tennis ecosystem. While Djokovic was in court fighting a government bid to deport him, a Sunday Age, The Sun Herald exclusive poll in January found that over 2/3 of Australians thought he should have been sent home without competing in the Australian Open. What's more, a tennis US star talks about who should be blamed for the ban. As of right now, number 137 in the world, Christopher Eubanks, hopes Novak Djokovic will be granted a visa to take part in the 2023 Australian Open. He believes the Australian government and Tennis Australia might have done a better job handling the Djokovic visa dilemma. He expressed his desire to see Novak take part in the Australian Open and admitted that the situation had become something of a circus at the time. He did not place the blame squarely on Novak Djokovic. He felt that Tennis Australia and the Australian government both shared some of the faults with either the lack of or the incorrect transmission of information. Eubanks revealed on Tennis Channel that Novak was deported after he traveled to the country thinking he could play, but instead was sent home because he was given false information. The US player added that all of us are aware of the 3-year immigration ban for those who have been deported, he said. In spite of this, Eubanks said that he thinks Novak will be able to play, that he hopes Novak will be able to play, and that he hopes they can come to some type of compromise that will allow him to compete because, by his own definition, Noel tried to follow the rules that were put before him, and it was just a very unfortunate incident how it all went down. Not to mention, some people aren't in favor of the ban getting lifted. Locals in Melbourne don't seem to want Novak Djokovic back for the Australian Open in January. For the first Grand Slam of 2023, the world's 7th-ranked player Novak Djokovic is waiting to hear whether his automatic 3-year ban on entering Australia will be lifted. However, one widower has explained the upset his return would cause and has pleaded with the government to keep Djokovic out. In January, while the Djokovic tale unfolded in Melbourne, John Delahunty's wife, Rosemary, was hospitalized with terminal pancreatic cancer and was limited to seeing just one visitor at a time according to the COVID policy. He expressed his displeasure not just for himself and his wife, who had to endure the lockdown's many constraints, but also for the other millions of Australians who also had to lose their loved ones this way. Moreover, the widower has recently claimed that Noel is not entitled to any preferential treatment from the government. He claimed that Australia's Today program complied with law enforcement and governmental directives. Although regulations have been relaxed to let entry of anybody regardless of vaccination status, John said he wants the government to abide by the choices taken in January. When something like this happens again, he said, how can they expect regular Australians to follow the rules? He emphasized that he had nothing against Djokovic and that he enjoyed both tennis and watching Djokovic play, but that everyone should be given the same opportunities and no one should be given preferential treatment. Finally, we'll get to see him in Paris Masters too. All of that said, the news that Novak Djokovic will return to the ATP Tour at the Paris Masters and compete in both singles and doubles has thrown tennis fans into a frenzy. Since the US Open final in September, fans have been waiting 7 weeks to see Djokovic play again. After entering the doubles draw in addition to the singles draw, the world number 1 will be playing in front of his fans in Paris twice as often as before. After failing to compete the calendar year Grand Slam and win his 21st career Grand Slam championship in New York, Djokovic will look to redeem himself and go beyond Roger Federer and Rafael Nadal. But that's going to be a wrap for this video, my friends. So what do you think? Will he be allowed to play? Let us know in the comments below. Please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos just like it. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you in the next one.